Let's talk about how you can turn reference checks into recruitment agency business development gold mines and generate new clients for your recruitment agency using reference checks super easily. So my name's Devon, I'm from RefHub. We're a reference checking automation tool, and I think and talk about reference checks all day long, every day. Before I joined RefHub, I was in the sales industry for recruitment businesses across blue collar and white collar spaces, and I've done pretty much everything under the sun, from cold calling, door knocking, cold email, EDM, absolutely everything. So I know what I'm talking about when it comes to business development for recruitment. And in this short video, I'm going to show you one of the best methods that I've found for generating new client leads, and that is reference checks. There's 3 different ways we can leverage reference checks to generate new business, but first let's talk about why it's such a goldmine and brilliant opportunity. So when we think about references are often decision makers in the industries that we are recruiting in, and they often hold positions of power and have buying authority within those industries. If we think about, let's say, a blue collar role, you're most likely talking to a warehouse manager or a supervisor. And when we're doing a reference check, we've also got to think about they are now potentially losing a member of staff. So there's now a staff shortage, as well as the fact that we're talking to the decision maker. So that makes reference checks an absolute gold mine. And if you can play it right and you word it right and you come across genuine, there's a really good opportunity for you to get your recruitment services or your recruitment business in the door. So let's talk about phone references. Now, the first thing, no matter what method you're using, is getting the reference check itself right, getting the foundation right. So we see a lot of businesses doing reference checks. They're asking super general questions like, did the person turn up to work? Did you have any problems with the person, etc. Now, these are good questions and they're valid, but it's not going to demonstrate to that referee that you understand their business, that you understand the industry that they're in. And that's where we do the role-specific reference check templates. Now, you can sit down and build role-specific reference check templates. You can go to our website and download our free templates, or if you're a RefHub customer, you can go ahead and use our AI to generate you some super good role-specific reference checks. Now, the reason we want to do that is when we're asking really specific questions. If we talk about a forklift driver, for instance, if we're asking questions about, did that person use a gas, electric, or a counterbalance forklift, that referee knows that we really know their industry and we know what it is that they would be looking for in a potential candidate. So the absolute foundation of those role-specific reference checks. Now, the way I'd recommend using it as a business development tool is at the end of the survey. So we want to make sure that those surveys aren't massively long and you're asking tons and tons of questions, because by the end of that, your referee is going to be busy. You don't want to take up too much of their time. So as much as we want really role-specific reference checks, we also want them to sit in that 5 to 10 minute mark. We don't want to go much above that, unless it's for a white-collar role like C-suite, etc. Obviously, you want to do a little bit more due diligence. For some of those basic ones, you want to make sure that you've got a template of 10 to 15 with a good mix of sort of general questions and those super role-specific questions that really demonstrate that your knowledge and understanding of that particular industry. Now, at the end of the reference survey, there's a couple of different ways we can approach this, but the way that worked for me most often, and the way that when I speak to my customers works for them, is just genuinely introduce yourself at the end of the reference check. So once you've done the reference check, you can say something like, thanks so much for providing feedback on John. The thing you mentioned about this was super good, really helps me out. Just while I've got you on the phone, I just want to quickly introduce myself. I am calling from a recruitment agency, and we help businesses like yours place people like this, and we help you solve these kinds of problems within your business. You're going to know the best way to pitch it, but just stay genuine. And we know that they're potentially losing a staff member. They are ideal customers, so if you've got that sort of standard pitch, but just be genuine about it. Don't be too hard selling. Just do that introduction. Now, they may or may not want to engage in a sales conversation. Some of the conversations I have with other recruitment agencies are, hey, look, the people doing the reference checks aren't necessarily salespeople, and that's perfectly fine. This doesn't have to be a polished sales pitch. Worst case, if they start asking questions, you can always say, thanks very much. What I'll do is I'll get one of our salespeople, or I'll get one of my managers to give you a call back so they can discuss in more detail. So this can be done by anybody in the business. It doesn't necessarily have to be a business development rep or a salesperson per se. It's super easy. Now, that's how I'd recommend doing it for phone references. I will give you a free template that will go through some of this and give you a sort of a basic little script at the bottom, but my advice would be don't hard script it. Just be genuine and just try and introduce yourself and put that key points that you deliver on, so that whether that's casual staffing or perm placements, whether that's your fill rates or whether that's your industry expertise, whatever that is, just let them know on the phone there. So the next method, and that is follow-up emails. Now, the other thing that I'd mention is they may or may not be receptive to this while you're on the phone, but you can always send a follow-up email afterwards as well. And that leads us into our second method, and that's thank you emails that introduce your services. So every time you do a reference check, whether that be through automation or whether that be over the phone, however you're doing it, just send a follow-up to say thank you and introduce your core business offerings. So you can send an email. Again, I'll put a template here of both a reference check with the sales questions at the end, as well as a cold email sequence that you can use for this, that just says, "Hi, thank you so much for providing feedback on X name. If you want to get super personal about it, specify something they mentioned that genuinely was helpful for you, so that they know that you listened and you got some value out of it, and they're much more likely to engage with you at this point." And then you can say basically the same script as what I've just said. Just wanted to let you know I am calling from a recruitment agency. We can help in all of these different types of ways, and you can customize this as you feel that the conversation went. Now, let's get into the third way, and that's full automation. Now, this is what we do at RefHub. Automates all of your reference checking processes, and basically what happens, the candidate submits their referee details. Once they've done that, we automatically send out those super role specific reference check surveys that can be generated with our AI. And then once those surveys have gone out, once the referee has filled out those surveys, at the end of the survey they greet with a message that says, do you need support with staffing? And you can then go ahead and use that as a lead generation tool. And we do get a fair amount of people submitting those lead gens and those lead forms. And that's because generally, once you've used our AI template builder to build those super role specific reference check templates, you're building trust with that referee. The referee is usually engaging really well with those surveys because they're really, really relevant. You're getting super high character counts, and at the end of that survey, when they see the option to potentially contact your business, they go ahead and do that. So that just about wraps up my 3 different ways of using reference checks to do business development. Now, I'd love to know your feedback on this. Maybe there's some other recruitment out there that use reference checks in a different way, but this gives you a really good idea of 3 different ways that you can start generating leads for your recruitment business using reference checks. As I said, there will be links to all of the resources I discussed. I'll give you one reference check template that's got some sales questions at the end, as well as a cold email thank you sequence, and a link to the RefHub software, as well as a link to our lead generation tool and how you can really leverage that using automation to generate leads on absolute autopilot. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you get some value out of this one and start generating leads for your business.